welcome to an early morning episode of the Chad Prather Show. If you're watching this, it's the afternoon or the evening, but for me, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, which is typically when my day starts. And I want to talk to you about what you don't know, admitting our ignorance a little bit. I was looking through some old notes. These notes that I have here, gosh, I don't know. These might be 20 years old. I'm a note taker, and I have these pads all over my house. They're all full of words. I have to go back and read my old handwriting, which is difficult to do, and it's also difficult to do with these blind eyes as I'm now 52 years old. And I was reading back through some notes, and I was reading my Bible this morning, and I was reading the book of Acts. Chapter 9 about the conversion of Saul of Tarsus, who became the Apostle Paul. And I was thinking about blindness, and that makes me think of ignorance. And so I was thinking about all the things we don't know. So if you'll allow me a little bit for a few minutes this morning, or I should say as you're watching this today, this is pre-recorded, I'm headed out of town. I want to talk about how ignorant we are. Does that appeal to you any at all? We're pretty dumb, and that's okay. That's okay. I want to give you hope. Now, let me do this. Let me get this out of the way because I'm self-recording this, so forgive any glitches. This is just me and you. I hit record on the computer over there, and this is just us, so I hope this works. I hope I'm not just talking to myself and nothing's recording, such as it is to be an independent podcaster sometimes. I want to talk to you about our sponsors. And I'm so thankful for our sponsors. They're so good to be able to, they'd allow us to just be able to talk to you every day. And we vet them. We don't pitch sponsors your way unless we've talked to them a lot, spent a lot of time on Zoom calls with them, and really spent time making sure that they're the real deal. There's a lot of companies out there that want your attention and want your money, quite honestly. And we want to make sure that they are not only valued partners for us, but they will ultimately be valued partners for you. So as a consumer, you can trust the people that we promote. That's why we're consistently pushing our friends over at Birch Gold. And I do encourage you to text CHAD, my name, Chad, to 989898 and get a free information kit. Talk to them on the phone. Let them give you a call and tell you how you can secure your retirement, your savings, backed by real physical gold. A lot of people have those retirement accounts. You left a company and you left behind a 401k or something like that, and you need to transfer that over. Maybe you have an IRA that's just not doing much, and you need to put it somewhere where you feel it's a little more secure and it'll have some regular growth. Gold is a good way to do that, and the folks at Birch Gold can help you. They're our valued partners, as you know well. And very simply, you text my name, Chad, to the number 989898. I wonder if there's any gold in Fort Knox. We'll find out. Hopefully, pretty soon. I'm all about security, folks. I'm all about security, and that's why I also, another one of our partners, before we talk about how ignorant we all are, how blind we all are, I want to remind you about our friends over at Patriot Protect as well, patriot-protect.com/Chad, and you can tell them I sent you. The sophistication of cyber scams is unreal right now because we just can't help the fact that our information is all over the internet. And now you have scammers and cyber thieves out there who are they're using AI, artificial intelligence, to scour the internet for your information. And so they're pretty sophisticated in the way they come after us these days. Patriot Protect also scours the internet and erases your digital presence for only like $5 a month. Plus, they'll save you another 10% if you use offer code CHAD, C-H-A-D. Check them out. Go to patriot-protect.com/Chad and use promo code CHAD. $5 a month to protect yourself. That's amazing. And then, because I really want to put all these guys together, I know we're supposed to space these things out, but this is the protection episode, okay? Since we're so blindly ignorant, and we'll talk about that in a minute, I want to protect something else, and that is you. And you can do that at our friends over at Modern Warrior. Modernwarrior.com. Use promo code Chad. They got all the gear you need. Let me make sure I'm giving you that. modernwarriors.com. If you're looking for suppressors, if you're looking for optics, if you're looking for firearms, if you're looking for gear, if you're looking for anything tactical, check them out. They've got an exhaustive supply of the stuff you need to protect yourself, protect your home, exercise your Second Amendment, and just have a little fun as well. modernwarriors.com. When you get over there, use promo code Chad. They will save you 10% off your first order with that promo code. So what do we got you? We got your future protected. We got your online presence protected. We got you bodily protected, okay? So Birch Gold, Patriot Protect, and Modern Warriors. And I wanted to do that. Trust me, check all those guys out. I was just over on modernwarriors.com, and I was looking at some of their stuff, and they got some good stuff. I was reading this story, the Apostle Paul, Saul of Tarsus. If you remember the story, Saul of Tarsus was persecuting the church. And on his way to Damascus, he was riding on a horse, and Jesus appeared in front of him, blinded him, knocked him off the horse. He had a conversion experience. He had all these revelational moments. The Lord spoke to him, said, "I want you to get up and I want you to go to this particular house of a man named Judas, and I want you to go over there and I want you to stay with him for a little bit." And this man Judas has had a vision of a guy named Ananias who's going to come in and lay hands on you, and he's going to regain his sight. And it's pretty powerful stuff. Ananias, he fights back against it. He says, "Lord, I've heard from many about this dude. I mean, he's a killer. This Saul of Tarsus, he's killed a lot of Christians. He's executed a lot of people. I've heard about the harm he did the saints in Jerusalem. He's got authority from the chief of priests to bind me up and execute me as well. Everybody that calls on the name of the Lord." And God gives Ananias a hard assignment. He said, "I want you to go over there and I want you to lay hands on him and pray for him." And so the biggest Pharisee, Saul of Tarsus, the biggest persecutor of the church, became the biggest apostle. When his sight was restored, and more than his physical sight, his spiritual sight was restored. And so I was looking through some old notes here, and I dug these out. I think that we're living in a day and age where we need to really get our eyes open. There's a lot of things that are being thrown our way. I mean, I can do the Dear America show in the morning, and we have a whole list of headlines. And then so much happens from 8 a.m. in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon that I have a fresh set of headlines that we can talk about on the Chad Prather show. And so every day we're being bombarded. Things are just moving so fast, and it's hard to keep up with things. And we want to be knowledgeable. We want to have insight and revelation. I posted on Facebook this morning and on X a prayer for insight and wisdom and revelation, because so much is happening that it's easy for us to get tied down and bogged down. And most of us are just operating blindly. We're letting the world happen to us, and we don't have the sight to see the things that are going on out there. I believe that, like Saul of Tarsus, who becomes the Apostle Paul through this revelational, transformational experience, we're off on this mission, this headhunting mission that we really believe is a righteous mission. Saul of Tarsus, he thought that he was going out there doing the will of God in persecuting the early church. But in fact, he was fighting against God. And so sometimes in our quest for the truth, we find ourselves fighting against the truth. We find ourselves peddling things that aren't truth at all. And we need to every day pray. If you're a praying person, and I hope that you are, we need to pray that God himself will give us the insight to the truth that we need to be pursuing, even if it offends us. When Nicodemus in John chapter 3 came to Jesus under the cover of night. Nicodemus was another religious leader. He was another Pharisee. He was a teacher of the Jews, and he came to Jesus under the cover of night because he didn't want anybody to know that he was meeting with this one who claimed to be Messiah. And Jesus did something that wasn't necessarily unique, but it was a pretty good pattern or a method of getting someone's attention. You know what Jesus did? He offended the man. He said some things that offended his sense of truth. And sometimes you and I need someone to just punch through our smoke because we've set up such a smoke screen and a reality that we're living in, sort of an atmospheric presence around ourselves, and we don't want that bubble to pop. What I'm praying will happen with all of us, especially those of us who pay attention to what's happening in our country right now and happening to the world, is I want our bubbles to get popped. I want our allegiance to movements, our allegiance to emotions, our allegiance to men. If I had my wish, if I had my prayer answered, we would end that. We would get our priorities focused on the things that are eternal and not temporal. But because we're so focused on the temporary things and the things that get us excited, another executive order or another gotcha moment or another spectacular thing that happens in the media, or some story that happens, or another own, if you will, or somebody that puts somebody in their place, or some meltdown from someone who's losing their minds because Trump happens to be the president right now. Let's get our minds off. And I make a living talking about those things. So don't get me wrong. This is hard for me to talk about that. I can talk about those things. I can pontificate on those things. I can enjoy those things. I can point those things out. But that doesn't mean my life is focused on those things. I want us to set our minds and our sight on some eternal things, those things that aren't going to pass away. United States could go away. Our freedoms could go away. Hopefully not without a fight from people like you and me. But I want us to realize that until we get our eyes set on some things that matter, we're chasing blindly and ignorantly some things that aren't going to last forever. Donald Trump isn't going to last forever. The MAGA movement, if you will. I mean, I'm just talking about the things that people tend to put their hope in right now. We're looking at this amazing cabinet of citizen warriors, if you will, that are really against this idea of a deep state. And they've been assembled, like the Avengers. We're excited about that, but they're temporary. They're holding a post for right now, and then at some point, that's going to go away. But what about eternal things? What about your ever-living soul? What about your conscience and your spirit? What about your relationship with God, your relationship with salvation, your relationship with your own darkness of your heart? Those are the eternal things that have ultimate, forever lasting consequences that I want you to focus on. And I believe, and don't tune me out, I believe that when you get your focus on those eternal things, you will be more earthly good. You will be more effective. You'll be more powerful. You will be more effective. The Apostle Paul went on to write the book of Colossians. And in Colossians chapter 3, he says that, I want you to be heavenly minded so that you can basically be of some earthly good. Set your mind on the things which are above, because the things down here are passing away, is what Paul said. And so if we're looking at the things that are passing away, we're operating blindly. So I want you guys to get your bubble popped. This idea that we've got all the answers, you don't. God knows I don't. I grew up, I did just like everybody else. I grew up, went to school. I was fortunate enough, for the most part, I had a dinner last night. I'll just tell you this. I had a dinner with some folks. There's a group of men. We were having dinner, and we were all passionate about reading. We love books. And we have our favorite authors, and in some cases they overlap, and we love to share stories from our experiences with these books. Every time we get together, it's sort of like an informal book club. I developed at an early age a passion for reading, and I was remembering when I was a kid reading the old Hardy Boys and reading the Dick Francis mystery books. He was a British writer that wrote stories around horse racing, and they were mystery stories. And I can remember reading Louis L'Amour, all the Louis L'Amour books, the Sackett's, and I still remember the stories of Jubal Sackett and all these different authors that influenced me and shaped me as a young man. Every Saturday, my grandmother, as she would prepare to teach her Sunday school lesson on the next morning, she would go to the library and she would take me to the library. I was allowed to check out 5 or 6 books, keep them for the week, and I devoured them. And so a lot of people ask me, how do you know so many different things about so many different topics? And I was like, I don't know that I do. I know enough to be dangerous on most topics, at least conversational. But the reason is because I spent my early days and up until now at 52, immersed in reading. At one point, I was reading 4 or 5 books a week, even as an adult. And I'm talking about books. I don't read that fast now because I'm at that point where it puts me to sleep. It's so when I start reading, I start to doze off. You get the old man's disease. But I still like to read because I realize how much of this world there is that I don't know. My parents had the Encyclopedia Britannica, the actual books, however many volumes it was, A through Z. S had a couple of volumes, I think. I read those. I read the encyclopedias. I immersed myself in culture. I immersed myself in faraway lands. I actually read the National Geographics. I didn't just look at the pictures, okay? I read them. And for me, it was this constant fight against blindness and ignorance. I wanted to know the world. And the reason that at the age of 19, I got on an airplane and went to Moscow, Russia for the first time. And then subsequently after that, spent my 20s going to places like Africa and, Central and South America and spending my time internationally, meeting people, working with people, is because I wanted to see the world. I wanted to know the world. I wanted to see what was out there. I wanted to see, what takeaways I could get from studying different cultures. I realized that people are basically the same wherever you go in the world. We're all fighting for survival. We're all trying to take care of our own. We're trying to, live the best that we can. We're grinding it out. But I also learned that most of us are in this thirsty search for meaning and what matters. And so we're blind to so many things, and we're focused on so many things that just don't last, that I think that if we could change that perspective and ask God to take not the book knowledge, not the stuff we read on the internet, not the stuff we gather from the web or a podcast or wherever we're getting our information, but if we could say, God, I want you to turn on the lights in my inner mind. I want you to turn on the lights of my heart and give me wisdom and revelation. Let me set my mind on eternal things above, so that even though I may be foolishly ignorant, I'm going to confound the things that are wise. Now, I want you to look at me. If you can't see me, if you're listening by way of audio, I'm sitting here in a dirty pair of blue jeans, button-up shirt, and American Hat's steel gray cowboy hat. And this thing is worn out. You could see I got stains and spots and everything on this sucker. I mean, it's been through the ringer. It's an old hat. And today I'm going to get on an airplane, and I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. I'm going to have dinner tonight with some very important people, I guess, some members of Congress. And we're going to have a conversation. We're going to talk about some things. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to go over to the White House, and I'm going to have another meeting I was invited to. We're going to talk about some things. What are we going to talk about? I don't know. And the thing is, I don't have to know. How's it going to go? I don't know. What am I taking to the table? I don't know. That's why the Apostle Paul said in the book of 1 Corinthians, in chapter 1, he said, God uses the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. He uses the guy in the old worn-out cowboy hat. I don't want to shame anybody. I just want to, I'm okay not knowing. I'm okay not having the answers. There are people who want to come in with all their bullet points and all their stuff written out and all the things they want to talk about, things they want to propose. And I've just learned a long time ago God, teach me to listen, because all the stuff I've read in books, all the stuff that I've educated myself with, and, my college degrees, all of those things are for naught if you don't give me the wisdom and revelation to shine the light on those things, because I'm flying blind here. I'm okay to not know. And so, I just pray that as I go into these situations humbly, that God will take a foolish thing like me, a foolish vessel, an empty vessel, and fill it with his wisdom and his knowledge. And maybe I will have, like many other times I have had in life, I'll have a pivotal moment, an insightful moment, one that actually changes me more than I go in and change the situation. Now, I understand, I want you to be a change agent. Walter Payton said, when you get into the end zone, act like you've been there before. I've been in the end zone before. I've been around important people before. They're just people. They're just people. And so I don't walk in saying, I'm going to go in and I'm going to have this meeting and we're going to set people straight. I'm not going to do that. And any room I walk into, I walk in with my eyes open saying, Lord, what can you teach me here? What can I hear? And that's hard for me because I like to talk. You guys know at this stage, I like to talk. But I'm okay being blind, walking in the room. The Apostle Paul he was fighting what God was doing. But God had a bigger plan. And so God had to blind him. This guy who, if you ever read in the book of Philippians chapter 3, he talks about basically his resume, Paul does. And he says, man, I was perfect. He said, when it came to the law, I was flawless. I was a Pharisee among Pharisees. He said, I was the top. I was the MVP. He said, you couldn't challenge me. I knew it all. But those things came to nothing when God knocked him off a horse and blinded him with the presence of Christ. He showed him just how much he didn't know. Because in the face of an eternal God, you don't know anything. The prophet Isaiah says, what is man but the breath that's in his nostrils? God can snuff that out. God says to Job, when Job began to question God and say, why did you let these things happen to me? I was a good man. And God basically puts him on a quiz show and says, where were you when I set the firmaments? Where were you when I established the boundaries of the world? Where were you when I put the Leviathan in the deep? Where were you when I was creating everything? Where were you when I formed you? When I thought of the idea of you? Where were you? You were nowhere. And you know what? You're going to return to nowhere. So it's in that moment that you realize how finite I am and how big God is. And whether you believe in God or not, he believes in you. And he wants to use you. But he can't use you until he knocks you off that horse, off of that high place where you've set yourself up, where you think you have all the answers. God cannot use you until you realize that you're blind. Because then he wants to open your eyes up with his sight. The Apostle Paul goes on at another place in his writings and he says, I want to put on the mind of Christ. He says in Romans chapter 12, he says, I want to be transformed by the renewing of my mind. Jesus was crucified in a place called Golgotha. It was a place, the mount, it looked like the shape of a skull. Jesus was literally crucified in the place of the skull. You know where God wants to crucify you? In the place of the skull. He wants to get rid of your stinking thinking. He wants to give you a checkup from the neck up. He wants to renew your brain. He wants to crucify your mind. He wants to execute your mind so that you can take on the mind of Christ, so that you can be renewed by the transforming of your mind. Until then, you're operating in ignorance and blindness. So it's okay. Burst your bubble. That safe atmospheric presence you've got surrounding yourself, that's got to be busted. You got to be recalibrated. You got to be regenerated. There's a process that transformation requires, and it means you've got to be disoriented so you can be reoriented. You remember that scene in RoboCop, the old one? They probably remade that movie 19 times. I don't know. But the old one, the Peter Weller one, the old one, the one they filmed in my old studio at the Blaze, um, back when it was Paramount. There's that time where RoboCop just gets his rear end handed to him, and he can't get the sights back on. He pulls his gun out and he's shooting all over the place because he doesn't have that laser focus anymore. He's gotten disoriented, and then he has to work on himself to get reoriented. That's okay. That's okay. God is kind of reorienting some of us, and we might spend a few days in the darkness. And I want to find this because I found this in my notes, and this was so good. There's a couple of stages of where we live. Is if you want to get oriented, you got to get disoriented. If you want to get satisfied, you got to get dissatisfied. If you want resolution, you see where I'm going with this. If you want production, you got to understand how unproductive you are. But here's something I wrote. This was 25 years ago. We operate in 4 places. You ready? Are you still with me? Are you guys still listening? Here's where our blindness takes us. We have some people operate in unconscious incompetence. I don't know, and I don't know that I don't know. There's a lot of empty-headed people out there, okay? But they probably live to be 115 years old because they don't know, and they don't know that they don't know, and they're okay not knowing. So there's an unconscious incompetence. We don't want to live there. Then there's a conscious incompetence where you basically say, I know I don't know. I spend a lot of time there. And it's okay to say I don't know. I don't know. My late friend Jack Taylor used to talk about you can put inflection anywhere in that sentence. You can make it as profound as you want to make it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, wherever you put the inflection, however you want to say it, it's okay. Sometimes say, I don't know. I don't know. That's conscious incompetence. You know that you don't know. When you do that, you're going to strive to find out more. But then you got a place where most of us live, and that is conscious competence. We've got some know-how, we've got some knowledge, we got a little insight, and we think we know. We know that we know, and now we've become puffed up and arrogant. It's hard to grow there. This was how Nicodemus, as I said earlier in John chapter 3, this is how that Pharisee approached Jesus in the cover of night. He knew that he knew. He knew what he knew, and he had the conscious competence, and he had all the answers. So he goes to Jesus, and Jesus exposed him. A lot of us are operating right there. Conscious competence. I got all the answers. I got it all figured out. You should see the text messages that come into me. Everybody wants to talk about this, that, and the other. Everybody's got a theory, and they just know. And what's funny is I've yet to find anybody in 10 years of talking about politics and talking about the media and looking at things from a humorous perspective, I've yet to find somebody that's got all the answers. I mean, otherwise we're just shooting in the dark. Some people get closer to the target. But these people who know that they know and they want to get out there and tell you all these things and they got their theories and we listen to these guys and we're like, we just roll our little chairs right up there to the screen and watch them day in and day out. We're getting pastored by Tucker Carlson and pastored by Alex Jones and pastored by these different talking heads, and they're fine. But at the end of the day, why don't you get pastored by the great shepherd and say, God, we're all men that have to give an account, and we're all shooting in the dark here. We're all walking blindly. Everything we're doing is just hopefully an educated guess. But I'd like it if, God, maybe you shepherded me, and maybe you taught me. Maybe you educated me and gave me the insight. Conscious competence is a dangerous place to be. And we're not talking about, I'm not talking about if you're consciously competent and you're a brain surgeon. And that's great. That's one thing. I'm talking about in this world, trying to figure it out, trying to walk it out. That's why Jesus and, for instance, John the Baptist, that's why they were so hard on the Pharisees. When somebody walks up to you and calls you a brood of vipers, just you snake babies, calls you a whitewashed tomb, that's a pretty strong insult in those days. He was telling them that your righteousness accounts to nothing. Jesus was very interested in offending people that had conscious competence. You know, this idea that Jesus was some sweet refugee that walked in with a halo around his head and everybody just said, "Oh, isn't he the sweetest, nicest guy?" No, they didn't kill him for being nice. They didn't execute him for being sweet. Pardon me. They killed him because he was so dadgum offensive. And to them, he was blasphemous. He was offensive to the point of deserving execution because he exposed their conscious competence. Let God do that. Let him pop the bubble and show you just how blind you are. When Saul of Tarsus, Acts chapter 9, when he took off on that horse going to Damascus to persecute more Christians, he was operating in conscious competence. He knew what he knew. He knew where he was going. He knew what he was doing, and he was fully, completely confident in what he was doing. And then Jesus exposed. He showed up in the road and exposed his blindness. He exposed his blindness. You know, I'd love to know what's happening in the halls of Congress. I'd love to know what's happening in Senate chambers. I'd love to know the conversations that are happening behind closed doors when the cameras are off in the West Wing of the White House. But I don't. I'm not privy to that. It's a guess. I'd love to know why the Epstein list hasn't been released, or why we don't know the truth about Las Vegas shooting or 9/11, or these are the kind of things we talk about. We want to know, and you say, I know what happened. I know. I mean, I got all my, yeah. You're operating in conscious competence. You think you know, you're confident that you know, and then it gets exposed. And there's some things you may never know, but when it does get exposed, you realize how much you didn't know. That's okay. Where I want us to operate is I want us to have unconscious competence. Unconscious competence. So I said you got unconscious incompetence. I don't know. And I don't know that I don't know. Then you got conscious competence. I know that I don't know. Then you got conscious competence, which is dangerous to operate that way. But I want you to be an unconscious competence. I can't do anything unless it gets revealed to me. So I often talk about myself as being like a goose. I just wake up in a new world every day. I love variety. I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. I like for things to be different. I like the creative process. I like to see creative things emerge. I like spontaneity. Now, the older I get, I'm a little more set in my ways, and I like a little more of scheduled quiet, if you will. I'm accustomed to most of my life being in the middle of the noise, being in where the action is. I'm okay to step away from that now. Because I hope and pray that I've come to a place of unconscious competence where it's like, if called upon, I've trained my brain. I've asked God to give me revelation. I've asked God to educate me and teach me, and I want to put on the mind of Christ. But I've also done the work. I've put in the work. I've thought critically. I've embraced common sense, I hope. I've learned from my mistakes. Hello, guys. So that I'm not repeating them like an adolescent child. And I can be confident that when God calls on me to do something, that I can operate with an unconscious competence, knowing that He will give me what I need in that moment. The thoughts, the words, the emotions, the actions, the courage, the boldness, the meekness, the gentleness, the ministry, the grace, the mercy, all of these attributes that God wants to pour out. The giftedness, the ability to stand and to deliver, or in that moment, close my mouth and listen. See, that's unconscious competence. I'm confident that when I get there, God will give me the words. God will give me the knowledge. He will give me the wisdom. He will give me the power. See, this is what we need in our world today. Not people that have, not know-it-alls, not people that have all the answers, but people that say, I don't know everything, but I'm confident that God does. And I'm confident that to the degree that I'm in relationship with Him, I will prosper, I'll be in health, I will be ready to go, even as my soul prospers. The prophet Isaiah, when he had a vision of the Lord, he said, I am a man of unclean lips. I live amongst unclean people. I'm unclean. And the Lord touched him and seared his tongue, basically said, I'm putting my mark on you. You're mine now. And he says, I'm looking for someone who will go for me. And Isaiah said, here am I, send me. Moses had a stutter. He had a speech impediment. He said, I'm not good with words. Go back and read the story. And God says, listen, I'm going to give you what you need when you go and face Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. It wasn't the inadequacies that God was worried about. Some of you feel inadequate. God, if you have an unconscious competence, you're confident that God he'll fill those gaps, those voids of your inadequacies. So you get to a point where you say, I can't do anything unless the Father shows me. You know who else had unconscious competence? Jesus. Jesus said, I don't speak unless I hear the Father speaking. I don't act unless I see the Father acting. He knew who he was. His identity was secure. He was the Son of God. He said in John chapter 10, when he says, before Abraham was, I am. I mean, that declaration of Yahweh, I am that I am. I am the way, the truth, and the life. The identity was there. He was confident there. But he operated with an unconscious competence. He was conscious and competent that his Father was going to give him what he needed in that moment, which even included the grace to be arrested, persecuted, lied about, tortured, and executed. It's a powerful thing when you think about the catalysts that will produce sight and make you see what you need to see in that moment. God will give you personal crisis. There are things that are happening to you right now that are a personal crisis. And that personal crisis should lead you to a realization of ignorance. I don't have the answers. I don't know what to do. I don't know how I'm going to make it. That is a painful, painful discovery process, especially for men. But if you'll let the truth offend you and you'll let it burst that bubble, you'll realize how blind and ignorant you are. It sounds so mean to say, but it's true. The result is you'll come to a knowledge that you hadn't had before. When you approach the eternal, let's say when you approach God, when you approach God with what you think you know, don't do that. Come with what you don't know. Let him teach you. That Nicodemus I keep referring to, he was offended by Jesus in John chapter 3 when Jesus said, hey, listen, you got to be born again. And he said, how can a person be born again? You enter again into your mother's womb? I mean, what are you talking about here? And Jesus basically said, unless a man's born from above, unless a man is born again, he has no place in the kingdom of God. And he's not going to know eternity with God. And you go in and you read that after Jesus was crucified, you know who was there to help bury the body? Nicodemus. I don't know the outcome. I don't know the result, but I hope that Nicodemus had his bubble pop to the point where he ultimately got the idea that even in all of his knowledge, he was ignorant. And I pray that God gave him sight. You know those old pictures at the mall? You remember the mall? Remember going to the mall before we worried about, going out there and being a whatever money laundering operation they're doing at the malls these days. I don't know. Or you be around all these people, whatever. But they used to have those kiosks in the middle of the mall, and they had those big garbled up, jumbled up pictures. And if you stared at it long enough and crossed your eyes and, looked silly staring at it, you saw through and a picture emerged. There was a pirate ship with a shark underneath the waters. You could all of a sudden all this jumbled up mass of colors became an image and you could see it. You either saw it or you didn't see it. There were some people who never could see it. It wasn't the easiest thing for me to do that. But once you got it, you could see it pretty easily. Once you got it, you got it. I think that's what I'm trying to tell you today. Is I'm trying to tell you to see things, um, not through physical eyes, but squint a little bit spiritually, and let God open your eyes and help you to see what you need to see. Because I mean, once you get it, you're going to get it, and you're going to operate in. And maybe an unconscious competence is not the right term. Maybe it's a dependent competence. I'm confident because I know that there's some things I don't know. I don't know what I don't know. So it's unconscious to me. I don't know what I don't know, but I'm confident in the God who does, and I'm going to depend on him. So I know that there's frustration that comes with that. You're sitting there staring at that picture in the mall, just want to get it. I want to get it. I want to see what's going on. But here's the beauty of life. God isn't a travel agent. He's not here to get you from point A to point B in the quickest time possible. He's not here to pat your bobo and make you feel good. He's not here to take you from one emotional high to the other. You want to live on the peak and you want to get to the other peak, you got to go through the valley. And so ride the high waves, man. But I want to tell you right now, I'm going to hush. If you can't see and you want to see, if you want revelational knowledge, if you want insight, if you want to see things from a bigger perspective, God's perspective, let me tell you what you do. First thing you need to do is you need to admit your blindness. Admit your blindness. Think about it. If you could go back 5 years right now and do some things differently, do you think you'd do it? Yeah, because back then you were blind. Now, 5 years from now, you're going to be in the same default position looking at today, wishing you could come back to today and do it differently. Because guess what? You're doing some things wrong now too. Admit you're blind. Admit that you're blind and get to that place of professed ignorance, and then go forward. Admit your blindness. I'll give you another thing, and this is a hard one. I'm trying to figure out how I want to say this. Understand that blindness, it indicates a deficient heart, not a lack of intelligence. I want to see with my heart. I can fill my brain with all kinds of stuff. I can read Jordan Peterson books. I can listen to Joe Rogan podcasts. I can sit at the feet of psychologists. I can read the best articles. I can do research studies. But at the end of the day, where's my heart? I need to see with my heart. And I'll give you another thing. Go find somebody that can see and follow them. Find the person out there that's worked on that's found their own site, and follow them, talk to them, listen to them. You need to invest in the things which heal your own blindness. Say that again. You need to invest in the things that heal your own blindness. It might cost you some stuff, because once your eyes are open, it's going to cost you some relationships. It might cost you some jobs. It might cost you some income. It might cost you some lifestyle. But I'll tell you this. Once your eyes are open, you can help open other people's eyes. So admit your blindness and understand that your blindness is a heart deficiency position. It's not a lack of intelligence. Find other people that can see and be around them. Listen to them, walk with them. And once your eyes are opened, your eyes are going to get more open when you help open the eyes of others. So that's what I want to tell you. It's okay to not know. Just tons of things I don't know. So I'm going to pray that our eyes are open. I'm going to pray throughout this day, throughout this night, throughout this week, that God will open our eyes and help us to see, because our country needs it. Your family needs it. Your job needs it. You ever think about these people who are like uber successful? I take Elon Musk. You take Elon Musk. I mean, the richest guy in the world. I mean, here's a guy worth $400 billion. I just need one, you know. But here's a guy worth $400 billion, and everybody will talk about, well, he's not that smart. Well, let me tell you what Elon does have. I don't know. I don't know how smart he is or not. I mean, it seems reasonably intelligent to me. Kind of an odd, quirky dude. But you know what Elon Musk has that so many other people don't have is he's got the ability to see beyond the horizon. He's got the ability to see the future. He's got the ability to open his eyes and see things that the rest of the world doesn't see. And what I encourage all of you guys to do is to learn to see beyond your boundaries. I love the old apocryphal story. It's not true, but it would be cool if it was. Is that on July 4th, 1776, King George wrote in his diary, "Nothing important happened today." I don't think that's a true story. I love telling that as though it were, though, because it'd be cool if he wrote in his diary, "Nothing important happened today," when across the ocean, the colonies that he ruled over had just declared their independence and had started a revolution against him. He couldn't see beyond his boundaries, couldn't see over the horizons. He had no clue what was going on in the colonies that day. Um, some of us are bound by our circumstances. We're bound by our limitations. We're bound by whatever's holding you back. You got to learn to let go of whatever's making you stop. A fear of finances, a fear of risk, a fear of loss, a fear of broken relationships, whatever it may be. And I just have advised people for years, learn to see beyond your boundaries. That's the thing that Elon Musk did so well. Buying Twitter. When he bought Twitter, we all said, this is going to, I don't know what you guys thought. I mean, I thought this ain't going to work. They're going to crucify this guy. He ain't never going to. But he saw a platform for free speech. We didn't believe it. My friend Sarah Gonzalez, she went on a tweet storm, just posting everything she could, every conspiracy, everything that had penalized us, everything that had gotten us our online demerits, everything that had, kicked us off, put us in Facebook jail. She just went on a 2-day spree. I mean, like lightning fast machine gun. Still one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life was Sarah Gonzalez on that tweet storm of all the stuff that she said, the stuff that we had been kicked off of other platforms for saying. And guess what? No penalties. I thought that was pretty dadgum cool. I was like, this guy means what he's saying. Now, he and I don't share the same worldview. I don't share the same worldview as Elon Musk. I don't believe in fathering, 13 kids out of 4 different women. I just don't believe in that. I don't believe that, repopulating the earth with little Elons. That's never been it's just, we don't have the same worldview. I come at it from a Christocentric standpoint, belief in God. I don't know where a guy like Elon Musk stands in his faith, if he has one. But that's okay. I can still admire the fact that we have a lot of the same values, apparently. And here's a guy that I can admire for seeing beyond the boundaries. If you can ever learn to open your eyes and see beyond your boundaries, the things that are holding you back, you're going to become so alive. You're going to become so, so alive. You're going to have a passion that is unstoppable. It's going to get you out of bed every morning. It's going to motivate you. I struggled with that over the last 18 months. I've struggled with that because I've taken so many risks in my life. In a lot of ways, they caught up with me. And I got tired. And I got disenchanted, and I got disoriented again, and I became blind. I spent many nights, many mornings right here in my home, weeping, asking God, change me, save me, open my eyes, help me, or kill me and take me home, because I was miserable. And every day I'm asking God to reorient me so that my vision will be one that sees beyond the boundaries and gives me a passion for life, something that makes me want to get up and discipline myself to accomplish what I've seen and to spend the rest of my life pulling the trigger, risking it all so that I will never go back into that place of blindness and that place of thinking I have all the answers, because I don't. So let's pop those bubbles. Admit you're blind. Admit that it's a heart issue. Admit that you need other people around you. God will provide those people. If you're open to it, God will put people in your life who can see, people with sight. Remember what happened when go read Acts chapter 9. Take your time. Read Acts chapter 9, start around verse 12 there, where Ananias, he's praying and he has this vision of Saul of Tarsus. He's blind and he's at the house of Judas on the street called Straight. And God gives him a vision and says, I want you to go there and I want you to pray for this man so he can get his sight back. And he says, whoa, this dude's a killer. He's a serial killer. I don't want to go mess with this guy. And God said, go do it. And there's Saul of Tarsus in his blindness in a stranger's house. And he's praying that God will send somebody. If you're in blindness, you pray that God will send somebody to restore your sight. God will put that person in your life. I believe that. I believe that with all of my heart. So do those things and then open the eyes of other people. Use your voice. You are an instrument that's unique, created, put in this earth for a very specific purpose. Guys, I love you so much. There's so many implications to the words that I've said. I know that I ramble all over the place, but that's okay. I want you to see. I want you to see. And I want you to get to a place of unconscious competence where I'm dependent. You're dependent. You're going to change your community. You're going to change your family. You're going to change your life. You're going to change your world. You're going to have insight into it. You're going to watch the news, and the news is going to make sense to you. You're going to have revelation, and I'm not saying you're going to understand it. I already know you're intelligent. I'm saying you're going to have a spiritual insight to what's going on. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to walk over here, and I'm going to hit stop on the record button, and I hope that this thing recorded. I love you. God bless you. And I do pray, Father, in the name of Jesus, open our eyes and give us revelation and insight from your perspective. In Jesus' name, amen. Check out our friends over at Birch Gold. Text Chad to 989898. Patriot-protect.com/Chad. Protect your online stuff, your identity, and also modernwarriors.com. Use promo code Chad when you go shopping and save some money. They got cool stuff. Yeah. Maybe we need some of those, not just optics for our guns, some of those spiritual optics. All right. I love you guys. I'm going to climb my big butt out of this chair and go stop this thing. Take care of yourselves, all right? I'll see you next time. Don't forget, go to watchchad.com. Don't forget to tune into the Dear America Show every morning. That's all I got to say about that.